April 26th, 2019. It was a surprisingly warm and rainy night, and we were headed to see Avengers Endgame. A decade of build-up from Iron Man in 2008 to that evening was about to be complete. What we know now, but may not have known then, was that that night was the beginning of the end of our love affair with superhero movies. Personally, I enjoyed the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for the most part, but I've been a fan of superhero movies for a long time. But it's not really the super that draws me in. It's the hero part. Heroism is a concept that refers to the qualities and actions of individuals who demonstrate exceptional courage, nobility, and self-sacrifice in the face of adversity and danger. Heroes are often admired for their ability to overcome challenges, protect others, and act in a way that goes beyond the call of duty. Heroic acts can take various forms, ranging from physical feats of bravery to acts of moral courage and selflessness. Heroes are often seen as role models, inspiring others to emulate their virtues and values. The definition of heroism may vary across cultures and contexts, but it generally involves a commitment to a greater good and a willingness to put the well-being of others above one's own. To me, it's not how powerful a superhero is that earns my respect. It's the heroism part, the virtue, the behavior that I want to emulate in my life, both as a young man and now as a seasoned man. There are plenty of heroes in movies that don't necessarily have superhuman powers that I think are just great. John McClane from Die Hard, Indiana Jones from Indiana Jones, Ellen Ripley, Mad Max, William Wallace, and so on. These characters demonstrate that heroism can take various forms and doesn't necessarily require superhuman abilities. Their stories often highlight the strength of the human spirit and the impact of determination and courage in the face of adversity. But when I say superhero, typically the first thought is not of their nobility, but that of their strength, their powers, or victories in battle. This is primarily based on the way heroes have been depicted throughout history, as beings of superhuman strength who are known for their defeat of the enemies of their time, not necessarily their good deeds. The roots of superheroes can be traced back to ancient mythology, where tales of extraordinary beings with a sense of destiny were woven into the fabric of various cultures. From Greek and Roman mythology, we have Hercules, a demigod known for his incredible strength and heroic feats. His 12 labors, which include tasks like defeating the Nemean lion and capturing the Golden Hind, are reminiscent of the challenges faced by modern superheroes. Achilles, a hero of the Trojan War. Achilles also possesses superhuman strength and nearly invulnerable skin. His character in Homer's Iliad embodies both the strengths and vulnerabilities often found in superhero narratives. Perseus, another demigod. He's known for slaying the Gorgon Medusa and rescuing Princess Andromeda. From Mesopotamian mythology, we have the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was a Sumerian king who was part divine and part human. Gilgamesh embarks on a quest for immortality, demonstrating both heroic qualities and the struggles associated with being a flawed hero. These archetypal themes found in these ancient stories have influenced and shaped the superhero genre as it is known today, providing a timeless foundation for the portrayal of larger-than-life characters. The hero I want to focus on today is, without a doubt, very powerful. But it's his nature, his virtue, his self-sacrifice, and his commitment to good and the betterment of humanity that makes him truly heroic. In all of modern Western civilization, especially of men of a certain age, certain things can provoke an instant and heroic response. It could be a flag waving or the final notes of your national anthem. One of my favorites is just 16 musical notes. notes that invoke a call to action, to put your fists on your hips and look skyward. The call deep inside you to fight for truth, justice, and the American way. As the father said to the son, "They can be a great people, Kal-El, if they wish to be. They only lack the light to show them the way. For this reason above all, their capacity for good.
I have sent them you, my only son."
I guess my arm wasn't long enough, see?
Otis, would you like to see a long arm? Otis, would you like to see a very, very long arm?
No, Mr. Lou.
Otis!
No.
The planet Krypton.
Krypton.
The planet is experiencing extreme seismic instability. Little did the Kryptonians know, but their planet is doomed. Well, except for one scientist, Jor-El. Jor-El, a widely respected man, is convinced the planet is about to explode, killing everyone who lives there. When he approaches the planet's governing council, he's shut down, his ideas dismissed, and himself accused of being a heretic and a troublemaker. His own government's hubris and power allow them to silence Jor-El, preventing him from warning others of the impending doom. It is unclear in the movie, and further made confusing by the other versions of Superman's origins, whether the ruling council of Krypton knew the planet was about to explode beforehand. However, we can determine this. They cannot afford to have Jor-El spreading the truth around to the populace. And Krypton was an inside job. Jor-El agrees to keep his theory to himself, and neither he nor his wife Lara will leave Krypton. What Jor-El does not mention is the fate of his own son, Kal-El. Jor-El and Lara launch their son Kal-El in a Christmas ornament just in time. As the vehicle carrying Kal-El lifts off, the planet starts to destroy itself. It makes it to space mere moments before Krypton and its sun explode. Kal-El floats through space and time and eventually crash lands on target, the planet Earth. Jor-El chose this planet for his son because here, Kal-El would have superhuman powers compared to the rest of us. Kal-El crashes in a field in rural Kansas near the town of Smallville, just as Martha and Jonathan Kent are passing by in their truck. Kal-El emerges from the crashed spaceship in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. Martha and Jonathan don't really know what to do, given the situation. Being childless and in the middle of nowhere, they decide to adopt him and name him Clark. Growing up a god hiding as a normal boy must have been difficult for Clark. As a teenager, Clark could have been the star football player, easily, but he decides to work as the team equipment manager. Clearly he has the hots for one of the cheerleaders, Lana. He uses his superhuman powers to try to avoid being banished to a place of unending sadness, the friend zone.
My heart's an abyss and I'm all out of lotion.
Lana invites Clark to a party where they'll listen to records. Records are discs made of PVC or vinyl with grooves in them, and when placed in an appropriate record player, those grooves produce music. They were quite popular in the before times. However, Brad, one of the football players, sabotages Clark's work, preventing him from joining Lana at the party. I bring up this minor detail because it's a good example of how his adopted father's teachings about keeping his powers secret is a constant struggle with Clark's desires to reveal them. If not for Jonathan's teachings, they would have found pieces of Brad all over the fields of Kansas. This also brings up one of Superman's weaknesses, his taste in women. Jonathan is the voice of wisdom for a young Clark. He's convinced that Clark is here for a reason. Clark can be a force for good if he stays humble and kind. I can't play it here on YouTube, but Glenn Ford gives a riveting and inspirational speech to his son and sets him on the right path for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, he delivers this message to his son moments before passing away, right there on the family farm. I cried during this scene when I was a child, and now again as an adult. It serves as a lesson for all, especially boys and men who face a lifetime of responsibility, at the same time knowing there's some things beyond our control. When Clark reached the age of 18, he was called toward a great journey north. This meant leaving the farm in Kansas and his childhood behind. After a long and arduous trek into the frozen north, he finds the right spot and creates his fortress of solitude. There, he could commune with his biological father, Jor-El, who has recorded the entirety of his knowledge and wisdom into this crystal system. Over the next few years, Clark learned about his origins, his powers, and received further guidance about his capacity for good from Jor-El. It is after this training that Clark assumes two roles in his life. One of us, Clark Kent, and the secret one of Kal-El, soon to be known as Superman. From there, he travels to the city that historically needed the most help saving people, fighting crime. A true lair of scum and villainy, New York City, or as it's known in the DC universe, Metropolis. Clark Kent gets a job at the Daily Planet as a reporter. The Daily Planet is one of the Metropolis's major newspapers. A newspaper was a daily publication on paper from which people could read and get their news from. To gain readership, newspapers like the Daily Planet published inflammatory and scandalous stories without regard for the truth. Unlike today.
Whatever, I'll be at Moe's.
There, Clark meets Jimmy Olsen, a young photographer, and Lois Lane, a driven and aspiring reporter, who is quite talented at writing tabloid-style sensationalism of serious news stories. Her motto, as well as the chief editor's motto, is, "A good reporter doesn't get good stories. A good reporter makes them great." She also represents another example of Superman's questionable choice in women. I mean, you're Superman. Can't you do a little better than this? I mean, no offense.
Well, you buy a hat like this, I'll bet you get a free bowl of soup, huh? Oh, it looks good on you, though.
One of the more endearing qualities of Superman the movie is the comedic ways in which Clark Kent tries to act like a bumbling fool in order to hide his secret identity. He struggles with opening the chief's water bottle, he's constantly bumping into things and people, and he acts in a very different manner than the fast-talking, annoying, rude people of Metropolis. After work, Lois and Clark are walking out of the Daily Planet building when they are confronted by a white mugger who is wearing a suit and wields a snub-nosed revolver. Lois, being very unhelpful, utterly irritating, and risking her own life as well as Clark's, well, not really, throws her purse on the ground and kicks the mugger. The mugger pulls the trigger, but Clark catches it, saving Lois. What was Lois's plan here? It's a nice scene to see where Clark and Kal-El get to work together without anyone finding out the truth. By the way, the crime is so bad in Metropolis that they don't even bother calling the cops after this attempted robbery. It is then we meet the antagonist of the film, Lex Luthor, criminal mastermind. Lex, whose secret lair is underground, under the streets of Metropolis, has two henchmen. Hench-people? Miss Tessmacher, his, special masseuse? It's none of my business. And Otis, his muscle. No, that's not right. And Otis, his confidant. No, that's not right either. And Otis, his... Actually, I don't know why he keeps Otis around. Comic relief? I like Otis. He should have gotten Otisburg.
Otisburg?
Miss Tessmacher, she's got her own place, Mr.
Otisburg?
It's a little bitty place.
Otisburg?
Okay, I just wipe it off, that's all.
Lex Luthor has a criminal history and seems to have amassed quite a fortune, despite being 20 feet below the surface. It's not quite clear what sort of crimes he's committed, but now he has his eyes on the crime of the century, a real estate swindle of epic proportions. But we'll get back to that in a bit. Clark, on the surface world, is again finding himself in the friend zone, being placed there firmly by Lois Lane. Clark asks her to dinner, but she has bigger plans. An interview with the President of the United States, or at least she hopes. She's taking a Daily Planet-owned helicopter from the roof of their building to Metropolis Airport. As they lift off, the chopper gets entangled in wires and starts spinning out of control. It crashes mere feet away, but dangling over the edge of the skyscraper. People on the ground start panicking and gather to watch the disaster unfold. What proceeds is one of the best and most iconic series of scenes in all of Superman lore. I wish I could show you here, but, you know, YouTube. I'll do my best to describe it to you now. Clark, having been rejected by Lois, is exiting the Daily Planet on the ground floor. Still in shock that the Man of Steel got rejected by Lois Lane, it takes a moment to realize the disaster that is happening right above his head. Once he looks skyward and understands the situation, those 16 notes I mentioned earlier start to play. Clark Kent, in a nod to the Superman of years past, looks for a phone booth, but being the late 70s, the phone booths have been replaced by smaller phone urinal-looking things. A phone booth was a little room you could go in and make phone calls by inserting coins and dialing a number. These rooms were all over the city, and Superman would go in and change into a Superman outfit and fly out. A phone was a device that you would press the correct combination of numbers. A phone was a device that you would stick your finger in the right hole and pull it around clockwise to lock in a digit. You would repeat this process until the correct combination of numbers would connect and allow you to speak to another person still on a different phone. Instead of a phone booth, Clark Kent enters a revolving door at amazing speed, faster than anyone can understand. As soon as Clark Kent enters, Superman is revealed. A young Eric Adams is on the street and notices Superman emerge.
Hey, Jim! Whoa! Excuse me. That's a bad outfit!
At the same time, Lois, who is dangling from the wreckage of the helicopter, loses her grip and falls to her death. Superman, heartbroken, picks up the pieces and marries Raquel Welch, one of the hottest women of the 1970s and 80s. The end. Just kidding, Superman flies up and catches Lois. Then the helicopter falls, striking Lois fatally. Superman, heartbroken, picks up the pieces and marries Farrah Fawcett, one of the hottest women of the 1970s and 80s. The end. Just kidding, Superman catches the helicopter and drops Lois and the pilots off safely on the roof of the Daily Planet. We'll do a deeper dive into why I love this scene in a bit. Then we get a montage of Superman actually helping people. He stops a jewelry thief. He thwarts a gang of criminals who look eerily like the members of the band Journey. He gives Officer Mooney a mental breakdown. He saves a cat from a tree and gets a little girl beaten.
Haven't I told you to stop telling lies?
After he does all that, he even has time to save the President of the United States. Something strange I noticed, in this version that I've got through very legal means, there's a scene in the cockpit of Air Force One that must have been an extended scene because I don't remember it from all the times I've seen Superman.
You mean the old man drinks? After a mouthful of peanuts, wouldn't you?
I'm assuming that this has been cleaned up from the original version of he gets thirsty after a mouthful of nuts, which, if I'm honest, is pretty f***ing hilarious. I'm gonna use that at work tomorrow. Wish me luck. Anyway, back to the story. Lightning strikes one of the engines of Air Force One and Superman flies up and helps them land. After all his heroics, Superman arranges for a date with Lois Lane under the guise of an interview for the Daily Planet. He decides to take Lois flying, which is the worst part of the movie. Lois thinks of a poem about her experience. Unfortunately, Superman drops Lois, and she falls to her death. Superman, heartbroken, picks up the pieces and marries Linda Carter, Wonder Woman herself, one of the hottest women of the 1970s and 1980s. The end. Just kidding. He catches Lois and returns her safely to her suspiciously spacious apartment for a reporter's salary. Superman leaves right when Clark Kent arrives at the door. Clark, having pulled off the deception, has a moment of weakness and actually considers telling Lois his secret identity. I mean, come on, brother, you've had one date with her. Meanwhile, Chad Lex Luthor has taken the information shared by Lois Lane in her article about Superman, and by reading information from books, has figured out that the fragments of Krypton have landed on Earth. A book is like a website made out of paper? Stories and information can be written on the pages of a book and be read later for entertainment or education purposes. Lex, Otis, and Miss Tessmacher play a trick on J.R. Ewing, which allows Otis to climb aboard a nuclear missile and alter its target coordinates. Why Lex sent Otis will forever be a mystery to me.
Otis, would you like to see a very, very long arm? No, Mr.
As an aside, I can only find one instance of a live nuclear missile with an active warhead being launched, the W-47 in 1962. So what was Lex Luthor's plan? First, he gets the chunk of kryptonite from a meteorite that landed in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Second, he purchased large swaths of land on the east side of the San Andreas Fault. The final part of his plan was to reprogram the 2 nuclear missiles, one as a distraction and plot device, and one destined to strike the San Andreas Fault, causing the west coast of California to fall into the sea, instantly making the value of Luthor's desert property shoot up in value as the new west coast. Oh, and millions of Californians would also die. And now it was time to set this plan in motion. Luthor lures Superman into his trap, not with the threat of overwhelming force, but by threatening the lives of innocent people. With one missile headed east and one headed west towards California, Superman does not have enough time to find them and stop them both. Lex tricks Superman into thinking he has a remote detonator hidden in a lead-lined box. Eventually, Superman finds the box and opens it, revealing the trap. Kryptonite. Superman's only weakness. Well, besides, it's a wonderful conflict between strength and honor versus intelligence, tactical mastery, and deception.
Mind over muscle.
Superman is defeated and thrown into the pool with the kryptonite weighing him down. After finding out where the second missile is headed, New Jersey, Ms. Tessmacher saves Superman after making him promise to take out that missile first since her mother lives there. Superman agrees and flies away and eventually catches up to the missile headed to the East Coast. Meanwhile, the first missile impacts and explodes on target at the San Andreas Fault. 500 megatons, as Luthor describes it, detonates and causes a massive earthquake. To put this in perspective, the largest ever nuclear explosion was the Tsar Bomba, detonated by the Soviet Union in 1961. That one was only 50 megatons. 500 megatons would be a ridiculously large bomb, but I digress. Superman zips around saving people from all over California, including Jimmy Olsen, who is there with Lois Lane, Superman's crush. Superman flies where Lois is, but he is too late. Lois has literally been eaten by the Earth.
He's dead, Jim.
Superman, having enjoyed that one date he went on with Lois, loses his freaking mind, crying, screaming, and later hallucinating. During his psychotic episode, the clouds start talking to him. One cloud is Jor-El, who says interfering with human history is forbidden. The other cloud is Jonathan Kent, who says that Superman is here for a reason, to help people. Superman decides to break the Prime Directive and reverse time to save his love, Lois Lane. By flying around the Earth real fast, Superman reverses time, healing the San Andreas Fault, repairing the broken dam, and putting the 2 missiles back in their silos. For Lex Luthor to launch again? Whatever, he fixed that loophole off screen. Charming as always, Lois emerges from her car bitching and moaning at Superman. Superman! His only defense is he's been busy helping people. I guess the kryptonite affected his spine as well. Having defeated Luthor's plans and saved the people of California, thanks Superman, Superman flies back to Luthor's lair just in time to save Miss Tessmacher from being fed to man-eating beasts. Oh, did I mention that? In the extended cut, Lex Luthor has some sort of horrible animals that we never see, but are so dangerous that Otis doesn't want to feed them. There's even blood splattered all over the walls, and it's pretty clear why the subplot was cut from the movie. But Miss Tessmacher is then dropped to be fed to these man-eating animals. Superman arrives just in time to save Miss Tessmacher and apprehend Lex Luthor and Otis. Superman drops off Lex Luthor and Otis at a prison, and in a show of class says this.
This country is safe against Superman, thanks to you.
No, sir. Don't thank me, Warden. We're all part of the same team. Night.
What a movie. In the analysis of Superman the movie, there's one scene that stands out as emblematic of the mythos of Superman. I referred to it earlier. It's the helicopter scene where Superman reveals himself to the world. The musical score, composed by John Williams, is one of his more iconic anthems, and in this scene, it is condensed into a medley going from subtle and quiet to rising action to triumphant. By the way, the soundtrack is widely regarded as one of the greatest in cinematic history, and even won the Academy Award for Best Original Score. Christopher Reeve expertly delivers a perfect representation of Superman and Clark Kent, quickly shifting from bumbling, soft-spoken, and comedic to strong, powerful, and heroic. In this scene, he emerges from the Daily Planet as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter. But as soon as he detects trouble, his posture and demeanor changes as well, moving with purpose, quickly changing into a Superman costume, and flying towards the crisis. Even his voice drops in pitch from the high-end flighty Clark Kent down to his deep, reassuring, heroic Superman voice.
Lois, there's something I have to tell you.
I was, at first, really nervous about tonight.
The reaction of the people of Metropolis is also something that is unique and wonderful to Superman the movie. They look up with reverence and awe and shock. And when he saves the day, they cheer. The crowd is actually joyous from witnessing something that is good. No one questions his motives. No one tries to make Superman more grounded in reality. It's an absolute good. Victory not over evil, but just the triumph of good over bad. No army slain, no big blue laser in the sky, no doomsday scenario. Just one hero saving the lives of a reporter in distress and 2 probably drunk helicopter pilots. I would also be remiss if I don't spotlight the absolute iconic performance of Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. He is absolutely stellar in his portrayal of criminal genius, evil and plotting while charismatic and charming. Every depiction of Lex Luthor after Superman the movie has been, in comparison, a very poor version of Lex Luthor by the King, Gene Hackman. Surprisingly, Christopher Reeve, who one might expect to have been hired because he can fit well into the Superman costume and looks the part, holds his own when sharing the screen with Gene Hackman. Perfectly matched in opposing skill, this wonderful contest was never to be replicated, even in the later Superman movies of the series. And the less that's said about Lex Luthor's in the subsequent series, the better. Holy shit, who thought Jesse Eisenberg would make a good Lex Luthor? Kevin Spacey tried and failed, but he's kind of a villain in real life, allegedly. A great villain is a complex and compelling character whose presence adds depth and tension to the story. The most memorable literary villains share certain characteristics that make them stand out and contribute to an overall narrative. A charismatic and magnetic personality can make a villain captivating. The ability to charm or manipulate others adds intrigue and can make the character more memorable. Intelligent villains who engage in psychological battles with the protagonist can be particularly intriguing. A villain's ability to outsmart and manipulate the hero adds an intellectual dimension to the conflict. Their intelligence, skills, or resources should present a genuine challenge, forcing the hero to grow and evolve throughout the story. Villains that symbolize larger societal issues or represent thematic elements can elevate the story. The villain becomes a metaphorical representation of challenges that the protagonist must overcome. In the case of Superman the movie, Lex Luthor is really a symbol of greed, which was a byproduct of what some people felt was a growing trend in the late 70s and 80s. A villain who serves as a dark mirror for the protagonist, embodying distorted versions of the hero's qualities or choices, can be a compelling dynamic. Lex Luthor is truly the mirror image of Superman, not a replica of him, as we saw in Superman 4. Lex Luthor is the opposite of Superman. Where Superman is heroic and puts others above himself, Luthor is sneaky and plotting and puts himself over everyone else. Ultimately, a great villain like Lex Luthor is one who contributes to the narrative in a meaningful way, challenges the protagonist, and engages the viewer on multiple levels. God bless you, Lex Luthor. Surprisingly, there wasn't nearly as much drama behind the scenes as other movies of the time. It's really Superman 2 that was the shit show, but that's a subject for another video. With that being said, it must have been extremely frustrating to work with Marlon Brando. On his first day on the set, Marlon Brando suggested to Richard Donner, the director, that the cameras roll during rehearsal. Brando reportedly said, "Who knows, we might get lucky." According to Donner, that very first take was the one that was used in the finished film. Brando was notoriously lazy and was constantly pulling little stunts like this to lessen his workload. Christopher Reeve even complained about Brando in interviews, saying he was, quote, phoning it in, and it shows, unquote. Brando, known for sometimes refusing to memorize lines, used cue cards for his scenes. To make the cue cards less obvious, they were placed in various locations around the set, including inside baby Kal-El's blanket. Brando received a massive salary and a percentage of the film's gross, making his compensation one of the highest in Hollywood history for a relatively short performance. But enough about Marlon Brando. Christopher Reeve was not the initial choice for the role of Superman. Actors like Robert Redford, James Caan, Burt Reynolds, and Christopher Walken were considered. Before you question why Christopher Walken was almost chosen to be Superman, remember, they almost made a movie with Nicolas Cage as Superman. Don't ever forget that. Reeves' charisma and physical resemblance to the comic book character won him the part. Superman the movie set the standard for superhero films and remains a beloved classic amongst fans of the genre. Some say Superman the movie is widely regarded as the film that paved the way for modern superhero movies. Its success demonstrated that audiences were not only willing but eager to see comic book characters brought to life on the big screen. However, as I mentioned before, I don't think it was the super in superhero that makes this movie a classic. It was the hero part that makes this a formative part of my life and countless others. The fact that it's from a comic book or that its main character wears a cape and flies around are not non-factors, but definitely stand as lesser factors than the main one. The virtue and goodness and heroism of Kal-El. The film was groundbreaking in terms of special effects, particularly in its portrayal of Superman flying. The combination of wirework, miniatures, and blue screen technology set new standards for the industry and influenced how superhero powers were depicted in subsequent films. John Williams' musical score for the film is iconic and synonymous with the character of Superman. The powerful and uplifting theme has become one of the most recognizable and celebrated pieces of film music, influencing the use of music in superhero films for decades. I would challenge you to try to remember the theme for any of the MCU movies and compare it to the iconic level of the theme for Superman. The defense of truth, justice, and the American way does not require superpowers, just a good soul, a strong set of convictions, the willingness to stand up to danger, and the desire to protect the innocent. And even though this video is meant to be a celebration of Superman the movie, the end of this story is bittersweet. For as much as I love the movie and the performance by Christopher Reeve, I would be remiss to not spend some time briefly talking about him as a protagonist in his own heroic role. Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman is widely considered to be one of the most definitive interpretations of the character. His charisma, physicality, and earnest performance set a high standard for future actors taking the role. Christopher Reeve was born on September 25, 1952 in New York City. Raised in Princeton, New Jersey, he displayed early interest in acting and sports. Reeve's acting career began on stage and in television. He gained attention for his performances in plays such as A Matter of Gravity and the soap opera Love of Life. Christopher Reeve's iconic portrayal of Superman catapulted him to international fame. He reprised the role in 3 sequels, becoming synonymous with the character. Unfortunately, his movies after Superman did not find much commercial success after his role as the Man of Steel. It was nearly impossible for most people to see him and not immediately think of him in his iconic role. Reeve married actress Dana Morosini in 1992, and the couple had a son and a daughter. Then, in May of 1995, Reeve's life took a tragic turn when he was thrown from his horse during an equestrian competition. The accident left him paralyzed from the neck down, making Christopher Reeve a quadriplegic. Reeve became a prominent advocate for spinal cord injury and stem cell research. He co-founded the Christopher Reeve Foundation to raise awareness and funds for paralysis treatment. Christopher Reeve's courage and determination in the face of adversity became an inspiration to many people. His resilience and advocacy work significantly increased public awareness about spinal cord injuries. On October 10, 2004, Christopher Reeve passed away at the age of 52 due to complications from a cardiac arrest. Despite his physical challenges, he remained active in his advocacy until his untimely death. Dana Reeve, Christopher's wife, also passed away 2 years later in 2006. Christopher Reeve's legacy extends beyond his iconic portrayal of Superman. Reeve's life is remembered not only for his on-screen heroics, but also for his real-life determination and dedication to making a positive difference. Ilya Salkind, the executive producer on Superman the movie, upon hearing of Christopher Reeve's death, said this: "Some rare human beings transcend our greatest dreams of wanting to be strong and bring freedom, goodness, and justice to the world. Christopher Reeve was one of them. He made our dreams a reality. In a fantasy world, Superman is the best incarnation of our finest qualities. In the real world, Christopher Reeve was a true Superman who will forever inspire us to strive to attain those qualities." I think this video can be concluded by this statement on Superman from DC Comics itself. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, the Man of Steel fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. From his blue uniform to his flowing red cape to the S shield on his chest, Superman is one of the most immediately recognizable and beloved DC superheroes of all time. The Man of Steel is the ultimate symbol of truth, justice, and hope. He is the world's first superhero and a guiding light to all. Though his powers make him godlike next to his human compatriots, Superman's story is not one of greed or conquest. Instead, he strives to represent the inherent goodness of the human spirit and the capacity of every living thing to do right by their neighbors. I could not have said it better myself. Thank you to each and every one of you for watching. Goodbye.